Hello, investors. This is Ted Zhang, portfolio manager at Revere Asset Management. Today is Friday, August 1st, 5:06 p.m., coming to you from Vienna, Virginia, with this episode of the Revere Roundup Daily Market Insight video. State of the market, we are still in the uptrend. However, a lot of volatility has entered the markets, the most we've seen in weeks. So let's break down the action. Trend gauge. Market leaders still in up arrow, but yellow sub arrow. Short term, we broke the 21 EMA today on all major indexes. So we've moved the arrow to neutral with a red sub arrow. Medium term, still above the 50-day. So we still have a green sub arrow, potentially with a neutral sub arrow, with small caps and mid caps testing their 50-day moving averages. And finally, we're still well above the 200-day moving averages, and therefore we still have a green arrow on the long-term trend. What happened today? Weak job numbers, hawkish Fed, and tariffs trigger a pullback, and we'll dive deeper into that when we get to the tail of the tape. 21 over 21 list down 1.99%, 2 up, 1 neutral, 18 down. Turbo 12 down 4.12%, 0 up, 0 neutral, 12 down. Big 8 down 2.65%, RG down 2.3%, S&P 500 down 1.6%. RSP down 1.13%, Qs down 1.97%, QQEW down 1.51%, Dow Jones down 1.23%, Midcaps down 1.48%, Russell down 2.03%, Global 60/40 equity bonds down 0.52%, GROTECTION down 1.68%, and Turbo down 3.25%. So jumping right into it, starting off with a chart of the S&P 500, as always. Bring that like that. The S&P gap down below 21 EMA, and this is the first day below the 21 EMA for 68 days in a row, which is a record. Yesterday we had a gap up, bearish engulfing on Microsoft and Meta news, and last night we had Apple and Amazon earnings, which came in negatively as well. So we had one, two, three distribution days in a row. Yesterday was the big one, and today we gapped down below the 21 EMA and closed below as well on above average volume. The S&P 21-day ATR continues to rise, although still well below 1%, 0.73% now. RSP already was below the 21 EMA, gapped down, broke the 50-day, but reclaimed it by the close. The Qs, same thing, gap up, bearish engulfing, gap down again below the 21 EMA on increased volume and the largest in this entire base. QQEW, we actually closed below 21 EMA yesterday, which was a harbinger of weakness, and then we closed below the 50-day today. Dow Jones held the 50-day but closed below the 21 EMA. Mid caps held the 50-day and 200-day and closed above the 21, closed below the 21 EMA. Russell, same thing. We actually are back below the 200-day, held the 50 for now, but closed below the 21 and 200. VIX saw a big spike as well, uh, up to 20.38. This says up 9.87, but it's actually up over 20%. Dollar, huge reversal in the dollar, rejecting this 100 level. So the undercut reclaim fails so far, and as of now, this is just a lower high again. Gold, gold perks up after finding support at 300, still within this big range, above 318, and that'd be a potential opportunity on gold. We're in a big, big base right now. This is a 15-week long base. Silver finds support at the 50-day moving average and moves higher today off the fear. Bitcoin slides today, breaking the July 25th low. But we do have this 112,000 level, which is the breakout level, along with the 50-day moving average, which is right here as well. So we're super close to that, potential retest of that. But we should see what happens. This is definitely unwinding a lot of leverage longs and longs too. One thing to note is if you step back on the monthly chart, we did get an all-time high monthly close. So right now, that is a zoomed out version, clearly an uptrend. The daily looks a bit messier, but we will see what happens there. Finally, we've had the bond market moved huge today. The biggest move in the 2-year yield in over a year. The last time the bonds have moved on this magnitude was August 2nd, 2024, but we exceeded that today with a 28 basis point drop. Previously, we had a 30 basis point drop December 13th, 2023. So it's been nearly a year and a half now since the biggest move in the bond market, and that is huge. And this is on the back of tariff rates, plus, more importantly, weak labor market data that came out today, which I will go over soon in the tail of the tape. 1 year's down 24 basis points, 2 years down 28 basis points, 10 years down nearly 17 basis points. And of course, on the flip side, bonds were bid up. And as you can see, yep, coming out of this big base here, all it took was a catalyst. That being said, that is it for the inter-asset correlation. Now I'll head to the tail of the tape, and there's a lot to update here. To start, of course, VIX is back up above 20. This should be actually in the orange or red. 20.72, up 23.8% today. CNN Fear and Greed dropped 13, back to neutral. Sorry about that typo, but it's back to neutral. We are operating under the bear case now, below the 21 EMA. And in terms of news, there's a lot of news, but broke the 21 EMA. Day count down 1 to down 2. 2 days below the 8 EMA, 21 days below, I mean, 1 day below the 21 EMA. Today's news, there's a lot of big pieces of news just in the last couple of days. First, Apple, Amazon, disappointing earnings reaction. Uh, you can look, we'll look at this real quick. Apple was down 2.5%, gapped up initially, bearish engulfing, huge volume to the downside. Amazon down 8%. Just some disappointing AWS numbers. Gap below the 21, below the 50, or above the 50 and close below the 50. So this is really weak on Amazon. Microsoft, we knew we gapped up, but completely faded and almost is going for the gap fill. And then Meta also is coming for the gap fill as well. Other pieces of important news today to be mindful of. Weak job numbers. So the July employment report missed expectations by a wide margin, showing only 73,000 jobs added versus 104,000 expected. And there are also major downward revisions to the prior months. The unemployment rate stayed at 4.2%, which is the highest in over a year. So this is fueling an economic slowdown and cutting expectations for Fed rate cuts. Sorry, raising expectations for future Fed rate cuts. And those revisions were huge. June revised down 147,000 to 14,000, and May revised down 144,000 to 19,000. On top of that, bonds were volatile, which I covered, and then tariffs came into effect. The new tariffs ranging from 10% to 41% on imports from 92 countries, including major partners like Canada, now facing a 35% tariff, up from 25%. Taiwan, India, and South Korea, and most of these tariffs are set to take in effect August 7th. But Canada's increase is immediate. And this also just renews fears of price hikes, supply chain disruptions, and global trade retaliation, triggering market volatility. So those are the big pieces of news: disappointing earnings, weak job numbers, and tariffs. And there's also a piece of news that Trump is repositioning some nuclear submarines near Russia after quote unquote provocative statements from a Russian leader. Today's keys were Washington S&P versus the 8 and 21, closed below both. Qs versus the 8 and 21, closed below both. Russell versus the 21, closed below both. And then leaders and indexes are both weak, but some leaders showing some signs of strength, like in utilities, VSD, CEG, NRG, um, as well as like some semis names too. So short-term expectations are back to neutral after today. Still not negative yet until we get too close below the 21 EMA. Strong sectors, bond prices, healthcare staples, weed ETF, building stocks because of the rate sensitiveness of that sector, gold and silver Bond yields are down as I showed. Dollar, Bitcoin miners, RK, oil and gas, and mega caps. Grow 1.08 beta, 1.68% open heat. Sold SoFi, Rubrik, and trimmed hood. Turbo, 1.28 beta, 2.61% open heat. Sold Rubrik, Tesla, Futu, Coin, and QLD. Bottom line is weak job numbers, hawkish Fed, and tariffs triggers a pullback. With that being said, let us go over some charts of interest. I talked about Apple, Amazon, and Meta and Microsoft. I wanted to quickly talk about Coin as well. Down 17% off an earnings miss, slow down revenue growth as well, and close below the 50-day moving average. Strategy, same thing, broke the 50 on earnings, even though it had a huge beat, but doesn't really matter. It's just a big beat because of Bitcoin going up. But this has broken down as well. And he continues to issue preferred stock to raise more money for buying more Bitcoin. So we will see. And then Reddit was the positive reaction. Huge beat on earnings and revenues. You can see 850% year-over-year earnings, expecting negative, came out positive. Huge beat on revenues, 78%. Gross margins are huge. Daily active users continues to rise, and this 200 level remains key as well. This could turn into like a CRDL, which actually closed pretty strong, where it gaps up within the base. It has to pull up the U-turn before continue higher because of overhead supply. Some other names to be aware of that were strong. BST closed near the highs. These are the utility, energy, power generation names, CEG, NRG, GV. So those are a basket of those names that closed really strong. That's what NVIDIA did. Closed midday, still better than others. Avgo closed near highs of the day as well. Yeah. Rocket Lab is another one that undercut reclaimed 21 and closed at the upper end of the range. And finally, let's go over the 21 over 21 list and the Turbo 12 list. So to start, we only have three up names. MP remains strong, extraordinary strength, building higher lows with 21 EMA starting to catch up. This on the back of the DoD partnership and Apple, extraordinary catalysts. Pretty much the government is choosing this as a winner in a way. Gold miners poked its head back above the 21 EMA and 50-day as gold remains strong. And then Spotify continues to stay weak, even though it's up 0.1% today. On the downside, SoFi, we sold this. Literally just crazy volatility. Gap up, fade, gap down, rally, gap up, fade, gap down, close midday. This is not a chart I want to be in. ANET gap down, but still above the 21 EMA. ALAB gap down, but close actually upper ends of the day and above the 21 EMA. TRDL closed on the upper ends of the range, still didn't even get to 100 or the 21 EMA. Hood we trimmed, got down and then reclaimed the 21 EMA on volume. App Lovin just building a base into earnings in 5 days. DraftKings tried breaking out, reversed, gap down, hold the 21 EMA. AVAV slides but reclaims the 21 EMA. PWR pretty much reclaims the 21 EMA after some volatility. Turbo 12, every name finished down. Let's talk about CSSI held up the best, pretty much inside day, building higher lows in this flag. Earnings in 17 days. SEDG comes back in right at the 21 EMA. Viking Holdings gaps down and reclaims the 21 EMA. And then on the big downside, MIR. This is a nuclear. Uh, so what they do is they kind of clean up radiation. They detect radiation in nuclear defense and laboratories. This had a huge gap down, but reclaimed the left side peak, but still close below the 50-day. Cecil gap down 7%, but still above the 50-day. Kind of just forming this base here. SYM robotics name gap down, but held the 21 EMA and closed highs of that range. Galaxy tested the top of the base, closed midday, also held the 21 EMA. Solana just leaks off with crypto. SMCI actually really strong, still hasn't even tested the 21 EMA and volume's drying up. KTOS holds 20 21 EMA, this drone and defense name, and LEU. Gaps down, reclaims 200, but closes below the 21 EMA for the first time in this move. So with that being said, Trump's tariffs, weak job report, hawkish Fed, earnings disappointments is leading to the greatest volatility we've seen in weeks, and the first time we've closed below the 21 EMA in 68 days, which marks a record. Um, This is completely expected. We got super extended. There's some froth in the markets with IPOs running hundreds of percent. We also saw Bitcoin treasury companies loading, Ethereum treasury companies, Tron treasury companies, Binance treasury companies. So those are all somewhat of a sign of frothiness. So this is just working off of it. Long-term trend remains up, and we'll just take it day by day. But we always think risk first, and we respect our rules and our stops. So that being said, I'm gonna wrap up today's video. Today's Friday, August 1st, 5:22 p.m. This is Ted Zhang with Revere Asset Management, telling it like it is. Thank you for listening. And actually, if you're interested in what we do, you can email me at ted@revereasset.com. Twitter is X. Twitter and X is Ted H. Zhang. You can call us at 855 Real Wealth. That's 855-732-5932. Our website is revereasset.com. And our social medias are at Revere Asset as well. So yeah, with that being said, I'm gonna wrap it up for today's video. Have a nice rest of your week and have a nice weekend.